What's up, guys and gals? If you're watching this video, you're probably trying to figure out how to use the Solidworks routing features. They're not too complicated, but there's just some basic things you need to know in order to get these routes set up. Hopefully you're here from the UW-Madison formula team, and if so, go you. If you're not, sucks to suck, but hopefully this video is helpful anyways. So here we go. We're going to click routing. Underneath your main tabs here, we're going to click Solidworks add-ins. And then we're going to click routing. What this is going to do is this will import some different options that we have and how we want to set up our tubing or our routing. Now we have electrical, piping, and tubing. There's a bunch of different ways to start these routes and that kind of stuff. And today we're going to be focusing on starting at point. I've just found it's the easiest thing to use, and it makes it really easy just to start routing from places in complex assemblies and that kind of thing. Today we're going to be doing electrical routing, but it's the same process for tubing as well. Electrical just making like a solid tube, and tubing making like a tube with a certain wall thickness. So, you know what, in fact, I'll show you the differences. I'll run through them both really quickly. So, for electrical, we're going to start at the point, and now we're going to make our selection. So, it's important that you make a selection. You make your selection on an edge or the circular, or like a cylinder, or whatever thing you're trying to route from. So first, we'll click our edge here, and you'll notice that we have a red arrow. It's important that this arrow is going the direction that your tubing is going, or else later on you'll get some rebuild errors for your tube, and you'll have to restart from ground zero basically. So we're going to make sure our arrow's pointing this way, and we want to make sure we're using a tube, or I guess in this case electrical. Not sure. I'm more familiar with the tubes. So we'll click tube here, and then we're going to want to make sure, again, our arrow is pointing the right direction here. Now if you click this reverse direction thing, it'll flip your arrow. You can see that. So just make sure it's pointing the right direction. Then we're going to want to select our tube. So we'll select tube, and you have to make, Solidworks should set this up automatically, but if you're coming at this from the Madison formula team, the tubing that you should use for this selection is kind of buried. So it's in Subversion, go to 218E, Solidworks, drivetrain, cooling, tubing, and there it is, tube-SS. It's basically, and click OK. It's basically just a tube that you can use in order to get these different kind of base configurations, and I'll show you now. So this tube right here, the way I designed it was a 1/2 inch opening. So I'll pick a tube that could like slide into there. Here you can see all of our different tubing sizes. So we'll just pick 5 inch for now, or 1/2 inch for now. Check. Now we're back into our setup menu here. So again, we have our edge selected, we are in tube, our arrow's pointing the right direction, and we picked our tube out. Stub length, this doesn't really matter, you can change it, we'll set it to 1 maybe. And then we're going to click check. It's going to disappear for a second, don't worry about it. Click use flexible tubes, and you can see here that we have our tube selected, our base configuration, and then we're just going to click OK. Now, I'm not really sure what this covering thing is, but figure it out, go for it, or parameters. Again, I'm just showing you like the bare bones way of setting some stuff up here. So you can check. Now we have our tube stub. So this point right here is a fixed point. This blue one is the one that you can change. That comes from the arrow that you set when you create the thing. You can see the arrow right here where my cursor is. That's why it's important that it's set up and pointing the right direction. So from here, if you wanted to exit the sketch and then exit back into your part, now you can see here we have a tube. It's now in our hole, and that's like our first tube stub that we're making. That was one I was practicing on. Don't worry about that. Now, this is the one that we're going to be using. You can tell it's selected because when I click on it, it highlights our tube assembly in blue. So if we want to edit that, we're going to right click on the tube and click Edit Route. And ask me to save it. Fine. So now that this is all blue because I'm now in my tube like assembly. You can't edit any of this other stuff. Like you can only edit your tube assembly. You can obviously still change the view orientation around. Now, if we want to, let's say we want to route from here around to this opening. We're going to want to right click on our tube assembly and click Add Point. There we go. Now, it's a setup menu. So selections, we want to get our edge. We already selected as a tube. Are we going the right direction? Yes, we are. Because again, we want to come from here, we want to go into there. So this needs to point in the direction that our stub is going to be facing. We have that. Parameters, it should automatically select the correct tube for you because again, you're in your tubing assembly already. And our stub length, it doesn't matter at all because you can drag it, but we'll set it to 1. So we'll click check. Nice. Now that we have our two stubs set up to route between them, we want to click on tubing and click auto route. To auto route, you have to click from one point and then route to the other point. So we'll click here, and then we'll click here, and then now we have our tube made, and press OK, and it's an error. Basically, this red part is showing us that we have a minimum bend radius error. In order to fix that, what we're going to do is check. We're going to edit the path of this. This long blue thing here is called a spline. You can tell it's a spline because when I put my cursor over it, it shows the spline symbol. So we want to right click on our spline, and we want to click Insert Spline Point. Now if you can see right next to my spline symbol, there's a little red circle with a cross through it. That means that I can't insert a spline point there. So I have to find a point on the line where there's no red thing, and that means that I can put a spline point there. I'll go ahead and do that. Then I'm going to press escape to get out of there. And now I'm going to change my route path by clicking and dragging this spline point. I really recommend that when you move these spline points, you get into a view where you're only going to be moving in like an X and Y direction. So in other words, like a head-on view or a planar view, whatever you want to call it. So we'll use this view orientation to come straight down onto our thing. And now it's not always possible, but it makes moving these points around a whole lot easier. So we're going to click our point, and then we'll just drag it out to here. Looks good to me. And there we go. Now we're not violating that minimum bed radius anymore. So we'll exit our sketch. We will exit back into our assembly. And now we have our tube made here. So there you can see it. Now, this is a tube, and I'm not too familiar with electrical, but I'm assuming it's pretty much the same process. So that's how to do that. Now, if you want to make another route, like let's say you want to go from here to there, I highly recommend that you just make it within the same assembly, because it will make working with these things, with these tubes in the future a whole lot easier, because it'll all be nested under the same assembly. So to get back into this assembly, we right click on our tube assembly, and we click Edit Route. Now, it's important that your Solidworks add-ins have routing in there. Now, if it's not in there, if your routing is not enabled, and you right-click on tube, it's going to seem like a part, or an assembly, rather. And you're not going to be able to edit it. So if you're confused on that, it's not showing up, make sure you click on routing, into add-ins, and go to tubing, or whatever you want to go to, and then right-click, and now it's not going to show up. So to get around this, what we're going to do is, this is a little bit complicated, but it'll save you time in the future to know how to do this. So we're going to click reuse route, click check. It wants to find that file, so we're going to find the file with the tube in it. So again, it's in 218E, Solidworks, drivetrain, cooling, tubing, our tube. Sometimes when it throws errors at you, you just have to do what it asks you to do in order to make it work. So click check. Now we have some goofy thing. Now, if you see here, it made a new tube from our original tube. We don't want that. We just want to edit this tube. So we're going to exit the sketch here. It's going to yell at you. Back to the assembly. Now this is the one that we don't want. This is some weird one. So we're going to right click, click delete. Just get rid of it. And then this one, we're going to right click. I notice it say edit route, reuse route, delink route. We want to delink the route. That'll allow us to kind of get it back to the original version of how we had it when we were trying to edit it. So now we're back. Right click, edit route. Sure, save. And now we're back in our route. You can tell because this part here is blue. Sometimes the tube becomes purple. Sometimes the other parts get like transparent or ghosty almost. And when it does that, don't worry about it. It just is a different look. That's all I was trying to give you. In fact, it's easier to select edges in that mode, so it's sometimes kind of nice. Now again, to add a new tube, we're going to right click, add point. Take the vertex, make sure the arrow is pointing in the right direction. It is. Right arrow tube selected, sublength, set to 1, check. So add a point over here, do the same thing, add point, our vertex. Now, pointing in the wrong direction. The arrow is pointing that way, we want to point the other way. So click reverse direction, set our stub length, our tube is already the correct length, our diameter, and click check. To get these two connected, click auto route, and then select this endpoint and select that endpoint. It's going to say minimum bend radius is violated. It's annoying that SolidWorks doesn't handle that for you, but hey, it's doing the best it can. So we want to go to our 2D view and get out of the auto route feature. So again, to fix this, we want to change the spline. So we'll right click on the spline, click insert spline point, click on the spline, let's escape, and then drag our spline point out until we find something that works. There we go. Check. Got it. Bam. Easy as pie. Go back, and now we have our second tube thing in here, and notice that it is nested within the same assembly as before. So that is basically it. Now a couple warnings I want to give you quick before you go off and run down into the rabbit hole that routing seems to become sometimes. If you see over here underneath our assembly, there's these C points. Never delete these C points. It makes the whole thing go crazy, and even once you fix the it'll give you rebuild errors because it won't be able to route to those points anymore. And even if you try to undo it, it'll still throw errors at you, and it'll just get crazy. So if you ever have to delete those, hopefully you don't, but you can go into edit route. If you have to, for some reason, like route a different way, so let's say we want to, instead of routing to this side, we want to route to this side. What I recommend you do is you delete the segment. So right click on the segment and delete that. Yeah, delete that. And then we'll just go ahead and delete this spline as well. So we'll delete that. Yes. So now we have this C point still there and our tube still here. So we're gonna change views over here and then add a new point there. So right click and add point. Select our vertex or our edge. Make sure the arrow's going in the right direction. It's not, so we'll reverse it. Tube is selected. Change our stub length. Let's check. And then now we want to use the auto rate feature again to go from point to point. Radius is wrong. Fine, whatever. We'll go into our planar view here. And then we will right click on our spline, insert our spline point. Whatever that looks like it might work. Press escape. And then drag that point until you get to some kind of like thing that works. There we go. Check. And then we'll get out of. Get out of here. Now, what is going on here? So it says there's an error. I don't see an error. So if you press rebuild, it'll fix it. It just gets kind of confused when you're changing routes and stuff like that. So now, see, we've now changed our routing and not had to encounter any rebuild errors. See, we still have the C point, whatever it was, point 2. It's still there. We're just not routing anything to it anymore. So it's just the point doesn't show up in 3D. And so that is that. So I think that's all of the notes I had on helpful tips and stuff. Things to be aware of: every time you make a new tube route, it's gonna make, like, every time you create a new tube, whether you even have a tube with it or not. So like, if you start at a point from this main selection window, every time you do that, it's going to start a new tubing routing, like a entirely new tube. So the best way to do that is, like I said, right click on the tube and click edit route. Sometimes when you first open these assemblies, the tube you won't be able to select edit route. So we covered how to do that. Again, you would right click it and click reuse route, and then delete the one that it makes. Then delink the original one, and then you should be able to right click and edit the route from there. If not, YouTube something else, because I would be stumped at that point. That's what I would do at that point. Otherwise, again, hopefully you followed along to where that one tube was located. Again, if you need to find it again, it's in Documents, Subversion, 218E, SolidWorks, Drivetrain 300, Cooling 330, Tubing, and it's this Tube SS. That's what you want to select when you're first setting up your tube. It should have been self-evident when we were setting it up. And beyond that, you should be good to go. Now, there's ways to change the appearance of these tubes. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. You can play around with it for like a second, but I don't want to spend too long doing it. Yeah, I'm not really sure. But yeah, so yeah, you can play around with the appearances, change your tube colors. It's the same as a part, but I'm kind of forgetting how to do that right now. But it's really not too difficult. You can make it. There's ways to make it transparent so it looks like a tube. Maybe we'll make another video on how to do that. But for now, this should help you to set up some basic routes, just so that you can kind of place things in space and visually see how things are going to go together. Really quickly, another helpful thing, once you have your entire routing thing set up, you can right click on your assembly here, and you can go to Route Properties. From there you can edit this wall thickness. Like, let's say I want to change my wall thickness. Now I can do that. Great. Check, whatever, now it's changed it. And yeah, so that is pretty much it. I was trying to see it. I know there's a way to figure out the length of it as well. I'm not exactly sure where that is. It's somewhere in here though. Thought I was in there. Well, if you're able to figure that one out, leave a comment in the description thing below. And if you figure out a quick and easy way to change the appearance as well, I know they're easy, I just haven't taken time to learn them exactly yet. But this will help you figure out how to set this stuff up just from a real basic level, and then you should be able to play with it and move on from there. So thanks for watching, hope it was helpful.